introduction because it gives us some coaching so that we don't do the same thing that Job's friends did, which basically said, hey, you know what, Job? Somewhere, somehow, you must have done something wrong to deserve this. And time again, Job said, no. And the book begins with, Job was perfect in the eyes of God, had done nothing wrong. And I know at least one 8-year-old boy who was standing by the finish line who had not done anything wrong on that day. So Eugene Peterson gives us this coaching. In our compassion, we don't like to see people suffer. Can I get a witness on that? And so our instincts are aimed at preventing and alleviating suffering. No doubt that is a good impulse, but if we really want to reach out to others who are suffering, we should be careful not to be like Job's friend, not to do our helping with the presumption that we can fix things, get rid of them, or make them better. We may look at our suffering friends and imagine how they could have better marriages or better behaved children, better mental and emotional health, but when we rush in to fix suffering, we need to keep in mind several things. First, no matter how insightful we may be, we don't really understand the full nature of our friend's problem. Has anyone ever had someone say, oh, I understand? And you think, no, there's no way you could, even though it was well intended. I've done it myself. Second, our friends may not want our advice. Oh, imagine that. Third, the ironic fact of the matter is that more often than not, people do not suffer less when they are committed to following God, but more. When these people go through suffering, their lives are often transformed, deepened, marked with beauty and holiness in remarkable ways that could never have been anticipated before the suffering. So instead of continuing to focus on preventing suffering, which simply won't be successful at anyway, perhaps we should begin entering the suffering, participating insofar as we are able, entering the mystery and looking around for God. In other words, we need to quit feeling sorry for people who suffer and instead look to them, learn from them, and if they'll let us, join them in protest and prayer. Pity can be nearsighted and condescending. Shared suffering can be dignifying and life-changing. As we look at Job's suffering and praying and worshiping, we see that he has already blazed a trail of courage and integrity for us to follow. And finally, Eugene Peterson, knowing that we are the human beings that we are, he says, but sometimes it's hard to know how to follow Job's lead when we feel so alone in our suffering, unsure of what God wants us to do. What we must realize during those times of darkness is that the God who appeared to Job in the whirlwind is calling out to all of us. Although God may not appear to us in a vision, he may make himself known to us in all the ways that he describes to Job. From the wonders of the galaxies to the little things we take for granted. He is the creator of the unfathomable universe all around us, and he is also the creator of the universe inside us. And so we gain hope. Not from the darkness of our suffering, not from pat answers in books, but from God, who sees our suffering and shares our pain. Suffering invites us to go in and look around and see where God is and what God's up to. What a great invitation. What a great opportunity to be instruments of peace. It's a high calling, and we're here to support and walk with one another. May God add a blessing to the preaching and the hearing of God's holy word. And the people were heard to say,